What would happen if you dug a hole straight through the Earth? The short answer is you wouldn't, at least not with a shovel or a drill, or even every drill humanity has ever invented duct tape together. The Earth is about 12,742 kilometers in diameter. That's a long dig. For comparison, the deepest hole humans have ever made, the Kola Super Deep borehole in Russia, reached only 12 kilometers. That's less than 1/10% of the way through. If digging through the Earth were a homework assignment, humanity hasn't even written the first sentence. But let's ignore practicality for now and imagine the impossible. A perfectly straight, perfectly empty tunnel drilled right through the center of the planet, with no air resistance, no friction, and no molten rock flowing in to ruin your plans. What would happen if you jumped in? At first, gravity would pull you down, accelerating you faster and faster toward the center. You'd pick up speed until, after about 21 minutes, you'd be whizzing past Earth's core at nearly 30,000 kilometers per hour. That's roughly as fast as a spacecraft re-entering the atmosphere. Congratulations, you've turned yourself into human space junk. But here's the twist. As you pass the center, gravity starts pulling you back the other way. You don't stop. Your momentum carries you upward toward the far side of the planet. You'd slow down as you rise, eventually reaching the other end of the tunnel after about 42 minutes in total. Then, unless someone was waiting with a net to catch you, you'd fall back again. You'd oscillate forever, like a pendulum, bouncing back and forth through the planet, gradually slowing only if there's air resistance in the tunnel. In that case, instead of endless bouncing, you'd eventually come to rest at the very center of Earth, forever stuck, floating in zero gravity, deep in the planet's molten core. A very lonely retirement plan. Of course, that's the idealized version. In reality, your trip would end far sooner and far less comfortably. First, the Earth isn't empty. It has layers. You'd pass through the crust, the mantle, and the outer core, where temperatures reach up to 6,000 degrees Celsius, hotter than the surface of the sun. Even with the world's best heat-resistant suit, you'd vaporize long before you got anywhere near the center. So, the first real answer to this question is, you'd melt. Quickly. But maybe you say, okay, fine. What if we had magical technology that keeps the tunnel open and keeps me alive? Well then, air resistance becomes your next problem. If the tunnel contains air, falling into it would feel a lot like falling into a hurricane that never ends. You'd reach terminal velocity after just a few kilometers, around 200 kilometers per hour, and then the drag of the air would keep slowing you down until you never reach the far side. Instead, you'd eventually settle at the center, again stuck, suspended in the middle of the Earth, a human yo-yo with no string. What if we vacuum sealed the tunnel, removing the air entirely? Then you'd get the ideal version, the 42-minute oscillating trip across the world. You could, in theory, commute from New York to Sydney by simply falling, but there's still a catch. The Earth rotates. If you dig a straight hole, the planet will spin beneath you while you fall, and you'll crash into the wall of the tunnel long before you make it to the other side. Unless the tunnel is aligned perfectly with the axis of rotation, your heroic fall turns into a very fast and very final encounter with rock. And speaking of rock, there's another big issue. The pressure inside the Earth is immense. At the core, it's more than 3.5 million times atmospheric pressure. That's enough to crush steel like paper. So even if you could dig a perfect tunnel, keeping it open would require materials stronger than anything we know exists. Without magical reinforcement, your tunnel collapses instantly, turning your dream into the world's deepest pothole. But let's say you solve all of those problems: heat, pressure, friction, rotation, engineering. Congratulations! You've invented the most useless transport system ever. Yes, you can technically travel through Earth in 42 minutes. But you can only carry one passenger at a time. There's no emergency exit, and if anything goes wrong, well, you're halfway to the Earth's core with no way out. Airlines would probably still do better business. Still, there's something beautiful about the thought experiment. The math is neat, the physics is elegant, and the image of someone popping out of the ground on the other side of the planet is undeniably fun. But the reality is that Earth is stubborn. It's hot, it's heavy, and it doesn't like being poked full of holes. So, what would happen if you dug a hole straight through the Earth? You'd melt, you'd suffocate, you'd get crushed, you'd smack into the wall, or you'd spend eternity bobbing around the core like a confused marble. But in the perfect imaginary version, you'd fall, swing, rise, and fall again forever. Earth's first human pendulum. And of course, the local city council would still fine you for not having a digging permit.